Hello and welcome back to Unfiltered Real Talk with Christine and S. Michael. I'm Christine.
And I am S. Michael.
And we are here and very happy that you are too. So it is 7:30 Eastern time. This is the time we're going to try to go on every week. Tuesdays, every Tuesday. If this time doesn't work out in the long run, we will change to 7, right, Mike?
Yeah, if that's what it takes.
Yeah. So we are trying to accommodate our new host and do have a compromise. We did 8 p.m., but that just seemed to be a little too late for everybody. So change it to 7:30. Still might be too late for everyone. So we'll see. We may change it. So if you're listening to this on the recording on our podcast, to you it doesn't matter, right? Because you don't come live. But yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, let me tell you first off how you can contact us. Well, I'll tell you how you can contact me, and then Mike can tell you how you can contact him if you're interested in talking to us. You can contact me at realtalkwithchristine@gmail.com. And Mike?
And you can contact me at shitlesspodcast@gmail.com.
I think his email offended everyone and they left.
Yeah, that must be what it is. I gotta tone it down.
Yeah.
They're all clutching their pearls and running for the hills, baby.
I know. Guys, you're going to have to forgive me. Yes, I said you're going to have to forgive me. I insist. If I cough tonight, because apparently after all this time, I finally caught whatever Mike had. See, at least the cough part. No, I think I have a cold. So I do have a bit of a cough. So I apologize ahead of time. I do have water, so hopefully that will help, get rid of it. Anyway, so Mike and I have not taken a break, right, Mike? From here, we did from our other,
not from this show.
Yeah, from our taboo podcast we did, but not from this one. So we've been here every week for y'all, and we hope you've had a fantastic holiday season and a great New Year. Oh, you want to hear what happened on our New Year? This is funny. So we all got together at my house, and the whole family was there. Everybody in our family loves to game, and they love board games as well as, video games and such. So that was a board game night. So we were all gathered at the table playing board games, and there were some people down in the basement and the rest of us upstairs playing games, and it got close to midnight. And so everybody came up from downstairs. We were all up there pouring drinks for everyone. What was it? Cranberry juice. And what happened? We lost the TV. Did it turn off? Is that what happened? Do you remember, Mike?
No, I maybe I was drinking too much. I don't know. I don't remember very well.
He didn't have anything to drink. No. So the TV went off, and we're like, what happened? What happened? So we got it back on, and we missed the ball drop. So
it was funny that right in the middle of the ball, like right before the ball dropped,
like 2 seconds, like 10, 9, 8,
the
7,
TV
6.
actually played a commercial.
Oh, that's what it was. YouTube. It was on YouTube, and it played a commercial. That's what I couldn't remember. See, I knew you'd remember. That's right. It played a freaking ad. We all hate ads, right? And they were on my son's YouTube, not mine, because mine's paid for. We wouldn't have had that problem.
Right. You have the YouTube Red or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch the ads.
Yeah. So
it's worth it, folks. It's worth it, at least for family events. So
yeah. So it went to an ad. So we missed midnight. We were all, the whole house was just roaring. It's like, oh my God, we missed midnight. So
I still got my kiss when the ball dropped.
Well, he got it a second later anyway, after we stopped laughing.
Better late than never. Hopefully it wasn't some kind of weird omen for the new year.
Right. So yeah, so that was our New Year's. Hopefully you all had a good New Year's. Um, so tonight our topic. Okay, so this is our first podcast for 2026. And and honestly, when Mike came up with the thought, I asked him, what should we talk about? And he said this. And it wasn't for the first show of the year, let's do this. Nothing like that. He just said, let's do something, totally different, out of the box, a little edgy. I'm
Well,
like,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, so we haven't done our show, the taboo show. And
Yeah.
so I was just missing that a little bit. And I thought, well, let's be a little edgier for this one, incorporate some of our naughtiness into Unfiltered, I mean, it is unfiltered, right? So we're all
Yeah.
adults here. So
Yeah.
yeah, why not?
Exactly. So tonight's topic is romantic. We're going to talk about romance in relationships, because we always talk about dating and new relationships and all the things that go into it. So we're going to talk about romance. We're going to talk about, how much is too much in the beginning. Mike has very definite ideas on that, and his ideas don't necessarily go with the people that sometimes watch our show, but historically speaking, the audience that I have always had on this podcast definitely fall in line with Mike's way of thinking. But we will talk about, when is it comfortable or appropriate, if you want, to start being intimate or romantic. How much is too much? How should you go about doing it? What was the other thing? I wrote down a few things in the Facebook group to talk about what we would, be covering. And I was just thinking of things as I was writing it.
Yeah, I've got my own little list of stuff here if we need to pull anything out of our bag of tricks.
Okay, so I said we're going to talk about the romantic side of a relationship, the attraction, the sex. When does it happen? When should it happen? What about casual sex? How about a friend with benefits? Do you do it before marriage? Do you do it after? Do you need a vocal agreement in exclusivity before you do it? Everybody feels differently. And how do you set those boundaries? Is it uncomfortable for you to talk about it? All the stuff. That's a lot.
So I want to talk about the first date that we had and the very end of that date, where we did not go to a hotel. I wasn't even, I mean, it crossed my mind. Sure, I
Oh,
might have
please.
even mentioned it.
It more than crossed his mind.
But no, I did want to kiss you at the end of that date, but I have been so bombarded with, consent is, primary, and, don't, force yourself on a woman, don't go in too soon, and, maybe you're not getting the signals right, so don't risk it. Like all the stuff, since the Me Too movement was going through my head. So I was very uncomfortable.
And what happened? What happened during the date? Do you know what I'm talking about?
What do you mean during the date?
Regarding your political correctness. You don't remember? You remember.
No, I don't.
I had to actually ask him during the date to please stop being so uptight and worried about everything.
I do remember that, yes. And so that, to my point, when I was ready to go in for the kiss, I actually asked, I said, may I kiss you? Which is so unromantic, and
What did I?
it's like,
And I'm like, don't ask me.
don't ask, just do it, dude. Like, and so I did, and it was great, but it was also embarrassing. It's like, but I mean, this is what we men are faced with in 2025, is we don't want to do anything that might be construed possibly as, either forceful or non-consensual, or, assuming, or anything like that. So
Right. And like I said, I had to tell him to cut it out, and I did. I wasn't I was very forceful about telling him because I wanted him to know I'm serious. You can be yourself with me. And I had to remind him, I'm like, I told you what about my podcast. I told you about my content. So please. And he was so relieved. He's like, oh, I'm so glad you said that. It makes it so much easier. I'm like, yeah, just be yourself. And then the kiss, I'm just like, yeah, don't ask again.
Don't ask, dude.
You have my consent now. Okay. So don't ask again. You don't need to.
So that having been gone down that way, my general advice to gentlemen would be to move in. And if she's not down for it, she'll let you know.
True. I would definitely not be too aggressive about it. I would be myself. Hey, look, if you tend to be an aggressive man when it comes to passion, if in the relationship, when you are comfortable with her, you are going to be the kind of man that would walk up and hug her and grab her face and give her a passionate kiss, then I see nothing wrong with moving, giving a hint of that. Don't lay it all on her immediately. But I would definitely, after a few kisses, I'd be letting her know who you are. Don't sugarcoat your personality or your passion or your romanticism. Be who you are. Let her know. That's what you want to do, because if she's not down for it, she's going to be turned off. And you know how things are going to go. She'll go home. You'll go home. You'll think, yeah, that was great. And she'll get a text saying, yeah, not interested. And that's okay. It sucks. But you'd rather know then than to find out, when you think things are going well and you go in to be even more aggressive and let out more of your romantic personality, and she smacks you across the face. So you would much rather get that text letting you down right away. So just be yourself. As like I said, be soft about it at first, but be yourself. It's my advice.
But yeah, also guys, you got to read the room, right? I mean, especially if you're dating a younger woman, chances are, she's going to be more leaning towards the, Me Too consent movement, and you may not want to dive in, and go for it. You may actually want to ask for permission. So
that might be the reason you don't want to date a woman that's 20 years younger than you. I mean,
among many things, but I mean, age ain't nothing but a number. I've always said that.
Oh, I agree. But when it's a man, and yeah, I am going to say a man going younger. Yeah, you could be opening a freaking can of worms, guys. Women going younger, young men are way different than young women. They are down for it. That you guys are one. You know what I'm talking about. Way easier for the older woman to be with the younger man than the older man to be with the younger woman who's that much younger in today's environment.
Today's socio-political climate, yeah.
So
you know what, though? It's way more common to see an older guy with a younger woman, though. And so that's kind of the plight there, isn't it? Is that...
Well, it used to be.
Oh, you think that dynamic is changing?
I think we went through a period. So when it was very common, like in the 40s, 50s, forever before the 40s, 50s, forever before. I think that it was excuse me. I think it was what am I trying to say? It was a taboo. It was taboo, but it happened all the time. Then I think it became okay in the 80s, 90s. It became something that was like, okay, whatever. It was sort of expected, and people sort of got over it. I think now in the, in 2015 and forward, it became more of a, do you really want to the men, because of the environment and the way the women are thinking towards men. There's a lot of man hate out there, unfortunately. And trust me, I am not one that advocates for that shit. I talk down on that stuff. So, don't get me twisted up with that shit.
Okay, well, I want to talk more about the psychosocial side of it, the more emotional or ethical side. So, when it comes to not doing it on the first date,
Yeah.
why
Not
don't
doing it, not having
yeah,
sex.
sex, not having sex on the first date?
12-year-old Mike snuck out there for a sec.
They said it. They're doing it. Yeah, the thing. Why don't some women want to do it on the first date, even if there's a strong attraction? Is there like is it a hard and fast rule or like a general rule of thumb that I just don't do it on the first date?
No, I think it depends on what they're looking for. If they are okay with casual, they still might have this thing about not doing it on the first date because that they won't do anything more than kissing on the first date. That sex won't happen until the third date or something like that. That is just a social construction that they've put on themselves and society has. Because it's like you're not even looking for a relationship. You're looking for casual, and you still are going to do that to yourself. Well, some women do, and whatever. But I think more so, it's the women that are looking for a relationship, and those women. Take me for example.
Yeah.
So I have never had a problem if I was comfortable and wanted to be intimate, doing so in a time frame that most people would think is way too fast. But in looking for a relationship, I decided I don't want to. Now, I only waited one fucking day.
Are you being transparent? You don't
am.
have to be that transparent.
Well, I'm sure we said it before. But okay, Mike and I connected pretty strongly. And yeah, but as silly as it may seem to a lot of people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, well, if you were going to do it on the second date, why didn't you just do it on the first date? Well, to me, it made a difference that he went home because I knew what he wanted.
Who, me?
He didn't hide it.
I may have mentioned a hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. And the fact that I told him no, and I didn't even say it would be the next day. I told him no, I don't know when it will be, and it was important to me psychologically to see him be rejected in that way, but not rejected wholly, because I still, made out with him and stayed with him for hours, and we talked, and we learned a lot about each other. We spent a lot of time together mentally, but I wanted to see him be rejected as far as that went, and to still have all the enthusiasm.
Okay, yeah. So let me ask you this. Have you had situations that were similar where the guy reacted in a negative way or
I've
differently than I did?
I definitely have had situations where if it wasn't going to happen the way they wanted it to, they just moved on to the next person because it's all they wanted. I ran into a lot of men who lied about wanting a relationship because they wanted sex, and they got it in their head really right from the start that I was not going to do anything unless I thought, it's probably because I said so. Unless I thought that it was headed towards a relationship. So in other words, I'm highly attracted to you mentally. I foresee us being able to build a relationship. I don't know that we will. It could fall apart, but I'm willing to take that risk because I'm seeing something here. That's the only time I would move forward. And when the guys would take me out anyway and claim that's what they wanted. So the guys that were lying, when I stuck to my guns, would be like, well, fuck, she meant it, and and then we wouldn't, we would just drift apart and not talk anymore. And that's fine. That's what you want. So you might think it's silly to do the, not on the first date thing. And a lot of women are like, I don't kiss on the first date. And here I am. I don't have sex on the first date. But to me, it's not silly because it like I said, it let me see how Mike reacted to that rejection. I mean, some guys would.
Yeah, and so let me tell everybody how I reacted. I was clearly disappointed, and let that be known. But I let it be known in a very light and funny and fun way. Like, okay, okay, it wasn't like I
Like
wasn't
any minute you want
pushy.
to change your mind.
Exactly. Like at the last second, I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I have, and so it was very light and fun and funny. And
But
we
definitely
had a second date, and the
disappointment.
rest is history. But okay, so does this may seem like a stupid question, okay? But does sex change the dynamic early on in a relationship?
Yeah, it does.
Necessarily?
Yeah, one way or the other, it does. You're either going to right as soon as you do it, you're either going to stamp it as this is casual or wow, there's something here. That's what sex does. It's either great or it's you know. Um, and if you keep doing it because you're thinking, yeah, this is casual, and then what you find out is second, third, fourth time gets better, 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 and then you realize sometimes the first time's just not that great. But look at us now. Wow. Now if our first time was like this, I'd be thinking you were it. That can happen. So I mean, yes, I do think it changes the dynamic right away. Um, but I think regardless of how it changes it, you should stick with it. I mean, he bothered to do it, you know, stick with it. Even if you guys have said it's going to be casual. Now, having said that, if you do it, and I'm speaking mostly to the men here, if you do it with the intent of we're going to build a relationship and that's why we're doing this, we're getting intimate together, and then you change your mind after, which can happen because, like I said, things change for the good or bad. And if that happens, it's only fair that you would let that person know and let them decide because they still are in the mindset of I'm looking for exclusivity and an ongoing relationship. And if you're thinking, yeah, wasn't that great? Now that I've gotten that close to her or him, I'm not feeling it so much.
Well, the old mantra goes that women use sex to gain intimacy and men use intimacy to gain sex. Like the
Correct.
closeness, the emotional vulnerability and availability.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's been like that since the dawn of time. So,
Yeah. And,
does,
and the only thing I think that I would stress and that I would always advocate for in dating, well, in relationships in general, is transparency. You cannot walk this minefield with intent to know what's going to happen from moment to moment. But you can walk into it with transparency and honesty and do the best you can. I mean,
okay.
you can't go wrong. Well, you can't personally go wrong with transparency and honesty. It can end a relationship, yes. But if it does, it needed to end.
So I do want to talk about casual sex a little bit, and I know that's a little taboo for this channel, but um, there are emotional consequences that people don't like to admit, even in the midst of quote unquote casual sex. And I wanted to bring that up because, as you have shared with this audience, I was in a dating pool as I started dating you, and I was having, a friends with benefits situation with this other person. And the night that I met you, I decided that was it for me. I was done with all the others. And I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I don't see this working out. And she immediately lost it and was like, you're so full of it and yada, yada, yada. And just kept contacting me for 2 weeks after, and it's like,
Well, and to give
is
that
there
a little,
even a such thing as casual sex, really? At the end of
well,
the day,
okay,
for a lot of people.
yeah. See, to give a little context, um, first off, there was a little bit of he decided this, and I'm not saying he didn't decide it because he's like, wow, this has been fantastic. And I'm not interested in pursuing anybody else. I want to pursue you. But I had just finished explaining to him that that's how I approach things like this. And I wanted him to know because we met on a dating app. So I wanted him to know, look, the way I do things from here on out, since we're talking about having another date and things seem to be going good, I am not going to be talking to anybody else. I'm not going to be making any more dates. I'm off of those. And I'm not saying I want you to do it. I'm just saying for me.
Which my natural response was that totally makes sense to me.
Right.
And yeah,
I said it's a
because
distraction.
I was in the mindset of you're really good for me. And it looks like you could be the one, you know? And I was like, it was so easy for me to say, yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm not going to be, you know, continuing in the dating pool.
Yeah. He liked the fact that I didn't want other men distracting me from paying attention to him and seeing if this was a good thing. And I'm not saying he didn't have his own mind in the situation. He did, but it did spur the thought. It prompted him. And he thought, I need to do the same thing. And I told him not to. I'm like, please don't do that while we're standing here, because it makes me feel like you're only doing it because I said that's what I'm doing, you know? So that was kind of a whole thing. He did it anyway. But regarding is there really ever any casual sex? Yes, there is. But in fairness to Mike, this woman misled him. He met up with her, according to what Mike will tell anybody. He met up with her pretty quick when they started talking, because they both in their profile said just looking for casual, just looking for
friends with benefits. Yeah.
Right. They both had that. So he's like, let's do this. And she's like, let's do this. So they did. For her to respond the way she did was wrong, because they went into this that way. Now, having said that, we weren't there, were we? We don't know what happened between them to cause her to have a mind shift. If either she misled him or she had a mind shift. Whatever the case, she definitely wasn't in the same mind space as him when he ended it.
Well, and I would say I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot since then about, you know, FWB, meaning friends with benefits, versus NSA, which is no strings attached. You know, so there is some kind of emotional connection involved in a friends with benefits situation. And so I can see.
Well, yeah, it's a friend.
Yeah, I can see how me saying, well, I just don't see this working out, you know, might trigger something in a friends with benefits type situation.
Yeah, it's like I thought I had a friend here, and just like that, we're just done.
Right. So FWB and NSA do not mean the same thing. They are different things. And, you know, I kind of learned my lesson the hard way. Again, I hadn't dated in 30 years. I was new to the dating apps, didn't know what the hell a dating pool was or how to do it right. And just about screwed things up with Christine because, you know, I'd been talking to her for 3 weeks on this dating app while I was dating other people and telling her about it, you know, so I was just clueless.
I just thought that he had friend zoned me. Wouldn't you think that? Come on. You know, he would come online and be like, hey, I had a date. It went like this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so we're just, you know, acquaintances. You know, he sees me hanging out online and he just says hi because he's got no one else to talk to. And that's pretty much what it looked like to me. And I 100% thought that's what it was. You know, so when we went to meet, I was just like, yeah, I'm not expecting much. But we'd been having great conversation. I think I even did a TikTok about it on my way to the date. And I'm like, we have had great conversation. I don't think I had shared all the nuances of why I was hesitating, but the nice part about it was because he had done that, I wasn't really nervous when I showed up. I kind of felt like I had an upper hand, not because I'm better or anything, but I just felt totally relaxed. I didn't care one way or the other, you know, what happened at that point, because I had already determined.
And if I believed in any kind of woo-woo, which I don't, but if I did, you know, I would say something like, maybe it's for the best that she kind of felt like I had almost friend-zoned her, because then there was no expectation when she showed up. It was more of a curiosity, like, you know, this guy can think and speak in complete sentences. Let's just go on this date and see how it goes. You know, but there's no expectation of anything. You know, she showed up almost like an anthropological curiosity at that point. I
And
don't
not
want to
that I
speak for
wasn't,
you, but
not that I didn't let it show, like on my TikTok, if you watch it, I let it show that, hey, if it turned out to be if he turned out to be as nice and attractive and interested as he seemed when we first started talking, this could be a really nice thing. And that's how I went into it. But I was very relaxed about it due to the way the 3 weeks had transpired.
right.
So anyway, but regarding casual sex, Mike is right. I think there's a difference between friends with benefits and NSA. And I think people need to understand that if that's something that they do, that there is a difference and you're going to hurt people, because even though a friends with benefits is not a romantic commitment, it's a friend commitment. And depending on what you put into it, you could be creating a situation.
Right, but I would use that as a cautionary tale, particularly for someone on her side of things, who felt like things were going well, and for whatever reason, I shut things down, and she was expecting more.
Well, and
And that,
I think she got the drift that it was another woman, because I'm pretty
for
sure she was
sure, but
throwing
then
that
that
stuff
would lead me to my cautionary tale, which would be, is friends with benefits usually a placeholder for something else? And I would
in. It
say
is.
that absolutely that's what it is. That's,
Yeah.
you're
Sorry, I met
basically just
somebody so
having
quick.
casual sex with somebody you get along with until potentially you meet somebody that you want to be with, long term.
Right, but she didn't expect you to meet somebody that quick. And in fairness to her, you didn't tell her that there was a woman, hanging up over here that you really, 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 really want to go out with, but maybe you should have shared that with her. Maybe,
Possibly, I didn't feel compelled to, because again, I didn't quite get what a dating pool is, and
right.
you know
But
what I mean?
if you had shared that with her for like advice, like,
Uh-huh.
hey, because we're friends, right? We're friends. And if you had said that, then that would have set the whole scenario for her so that she could not have backlashed at you. She couldn't have, because,
Okay.
you know,
I agree, but again, I think that I was really into it for more of an NSA than an FWB, and that's something that I've learned,
yeah,
over time. We
yeah.
really didn't connect on that level to where I would feel comfortable, talking to her the way that I talked to you, honestly, the whole time while we were, having our initial courtship. I told you about dates that I had gone on, and dates that
Oh,
had
yeah.
failed, and these other people I was talking to or seeing, and you and I just connected very naturally. She and I didn't have that, so.
So what do you think about so maybe this has to do with the NSA, because one of the things that I had mentioned talking about was, do you need to have a commitment of exclusivity before you get intimate?
Exclusivity, that's actually what I wanted to talk about next, because like, when did you and I figure out that we wanted to be exclusive? Was it on the first date? Was it when I said goodbye to all my other suitors or beaux or
Well,
whatever?
I was the one that broached the topic, and I wasn't telling you, hey, because that'd be a lot of pressure. I wasn't saying we're going to be exclusive or I want exclusivity. I made that really clear. I just said, while I'm figuring out if I want to have a relationship with you, I'm going to give you all my attention. So I'm not going to be dating other people.
Right, but that's an honest question that I'm asking you, is when did you go
Um,
exclusive when it came to our
well,
relationship?
I did from that night forward, just because
Okay.
things did work out and it just went that way. Yeah.
And so did I, and yay,
Yeah.
but
But it
is,
doesn't always work that way. That some people are very slow to get to the point of exclusivity.
and I think exclusivity means maybe different things to different people, and
How? How?
particularly people like perhaps our former co-host, who may not have been exclusive, and was in a dating pool. Um,
Yeah, but there was, what was it? Undercover things. So I think he felt the same way. It was just, don't let them know. If you don't
Okay.
let people know what's going on, then you're hiding something, you do feel the same way. You're just not staying true to yourself. Is that right? Is that what I want to say?
Sure. And so there is also like this phenomenon called the talk, right? Where you have a conversation with your significant other about exclusivity. I don't think you and I ever actually had that conversation, but I think it should probably happen in a lot of normal relationships is, hey, are we done dating other people? Like, are you
I
done
agree.
dating other people? Because I am.
I agree. I think the exclusivity, I think the question of exclusivity does come up in most relationships. I don't think most people, I don't think most people's relationships unfold quite like ours.
No, right? But I mean, everybody wants to think that their particular relationship is special and different, right?
Well, and
But
I'm not saying it's special. I think it is, but I'm not
I
saying
do
that.
too.
I understand that bias. It is, I do think it is different. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying I don't think most people progress in relationships the way we have. I just don't. Um, and having said that, we didn't have that conversation. We didn't need to. It was understood. I mean, look at us. We're
It
sitting
was
here talking about it.
assumed. And so is exclusivity assumed or is
No,
it earned? With
I
us, it
think
was assumed.
correct. Correct. But we talk about so many things, and so I mean we talk about everything. It's different. That's what I'm saying. We are different. We are
Yeah,
not
I would say that because I'm a psych major and because you're a podcaster who's been talking about relationships for years, and other things that you and I are into or whatever, that it has been very different for us than maybe it might be for a lot of others.
right. So having said that, I think most relationships do need that talk. So when do you do it? Like at what? Now you and I, the way we're doing our relationship, just because we didn't together have that, have you had previous relationships where you had to? I have. I have.
I honestly can't remember. It's been so long since I
Well,
was in
that's true.
another
That's true.
relationship like that. But
Yeah.
I
I
can
have.
I can certainly see myself having that conversation. Like, hey, we've gone on 3 dates now, and they've gone great. And knowing me, we've probably been intimate, and that's great. What is this a thing? Like, are you and I, exclusive? Are we together for real?
Okay. I gotta say, before I get intimate with anybody, I do have the talk. Now,
So for you, exclusivity comes before intimacy.
well, no, I don't have the talk saying, okay, that, yeah, I guess that was wrong the way I said that.
Okay.
I don't have the talk in so much as saying, you can't sleep, you need to be on the same page as me. We're not sleeping with other people. No. But I do ask, and I ask this. I ask, how many people have you slept with recently? Are you, are you cautious? Are you
And
safe?
you did. You asked me all those questions, and
Yes.
apparently you dug the answers that I gave you because things went well. But I
But
get
that's
that.
how
That's
I
part of your
found out.
screening. Yeah.
That's how I found out about his casual sex. Because he had told me he had been separated for 2 years and hadn't had sex. Right. So when I told him, when I asked the question, I'm like, I think I already know the answer to this, but you have been dating. So I'm going to ask, and as it turned out, when I asked him, and I will admit, I was a little disappointed in him at that moment for just a moment, because when I asked him the question, it didn't change from like having previously asked him, but we had previously, hit on the topic of, no sex for the last 2 years. So when I asked him it and I said, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, and he said, oh, well, I have. And he said, and I said, okay, so when was the last time? And he said, a week ago. I'm like, what? A week ago? I thought you've been separated. And he's like, well, yeah, but I, went on a date and, it happened. I'm like, okay. And at that point, it was like, okay, no big deal. Things change. And if you want to hear that, you're going to have to listen to our taboo, because we're not going to go into it here. But there was a lot of stuff that happened with that because I was a little disappointed. But anyway, I do have that conversation. Again, not about being exclusive, but I do find out What is your sexual history like? Are you a slut? Because if you're a slut, I'm out. I don't want to be with somebody that's hopping from bed to bed. That's just, I don't. So I don't want to be with somebody that's like that. Plus, I probably would never trust you, honestly. And that's a little harsh. I might, but I'm not going to set myself up for that. So I do ask those questions. But the exclusivity itself, to being exclusive to each other, I wouldn't do it after 3 dates. I wouldn't do it after. I think about 2 weeks in is probably about where I'd be like, we've been together a lot in the last couple of weeks. We talk to each other all the time. We see each other whenever we can. We're constantly intimate together.
Yeah, there's no day that goes by when we don't talk to each other at the very least.
Yeah.
Except for one day that almost went by because I was exhausted, but we won't talk about that.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah. So we talk all the time, every day.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Yeah, and it's Christmas Eve.
Ugh.
And he goes 12 hours without talking to me on Christmas Eve. I mean, to the point where I'm like, well, you're either dead or this relationship's over. I'm like, because this is unprecedented. You don't do this. And
so I wake up in a cold sweat and I'm like, I look at my phone. I'm like, oh my God, she thinks I'm, oh no. So yeah,
I can't believe I believed
I had to eat some crow and
he said, the first thing he said was, I know you're not going to believe me. But I just chose to let it go because, well,
I honestly, and we haven't really talked about this a whole lot, but I honestly think that was the last final throes of my like terrible illness that I was having. Because I woke up like completely soaked in sweat. And I had gotten up a couple of times to use the bathroom, but I didn't even check my phone. It was in the other room, which is very unlike me.
It was throughout the day, by the way, throughout the whole day. And it was a work day. So.
Yeah, but it was Christmas Eve, so I didn't have work.
He had to work. We won't get into this. But the point is, yes, after a couple of weeks, if I am spending that much time with somebody, I think about that point is when I would have the discussion with them. And I would have it then because that's what I'm looking for. So if he said, yeah, I'm not certain, I'd be like, oh, really? Okay. I'd have to start wondering if this is the right person for me.
But again, you and I really didn't have that conversation because we were both transparent from the beginning about what exactly we were looking for, which is our person, and we got exclusive almost from the first date. So,
yeah. So, okay. So exclusivity, Mike would do it after 3 dates. I would do it after a couple of weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of weeks for sure. And I think it's important to do.
How about you guys? I know we've had 5 people in here at one point. Now there's 4. So I know there's a few of you lurking on the YouTube channel. Let us know, when should you go exclusive, or when would you go exclusive in a relationship?
Or would you not even consider intimacy until after the exclusivity conversation? Because, we're talking about intimacy before. Now, not me. Well, yeah, I didn't say that I'd require exclusivity, but I'd require.
That was a question I asked. Should sex happen before exclusivity is discussed, or no? And I think for a lot of people, the answer is no. We do not have sex until there's an understanding that it's just you and me at this point moving forward.
Right. And I always tell a guy, hey, I want to know who the hell I'm sleeping with, if you're out there sleeping with other people, I want to know about it. And at that point, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it can only be me, but I'm saying if you are dating other people, I want to know right now before we get intimate. That's when that's going to happen. And I need you to be honest. It's going to happen before intimacy. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying I need to know. It's not right if I don't know. But then the exclusivity discussion would come later. And it would be, okay, we already talked about the fact that if one of us was to date somebody else, we would tell the other one, because it's only right. You're not going to sleep with somebody having slept with another person. And I would also tell them, when you sleep with other people, if we're not exclusive, that you would use a condom. Now, mind you, this has never happened, because I have never had this conversation with a man who then said, okay, yeah, I want to do that. It's never happened. I don't know what I would say. It's very possible that I have that conversation with them so that I can learn if that's what they want. And if they say, yeah, I am going to do that, thanks, babe, I might turn around and say, yeah, but it's not what I'm looking for. So, and that might seem a little baiting. I don't see it that way. And maybe it is. All I can say is I don't think people are honest and straightforward.
No,
And
that's true. That's what one of my favorite Chris Rock quotes is, that when you first meet somebody, you're not meeting them, you're meeting their representative. They are the
yes,
face that, they want you to see.
right. So I think asking the question and framing it that way, while it might seem like a trick, especially if he says, okay, yeah, I am going to keep dating, but I'll use a condom. And then I say, well, but I don't think I'm interested in doing that. I could see him being like, hold on, you just said that you want to know about it and I should use a condom. Why would you say that if you weren't going to be okay with it? And I mean, I think I'm
And if
willing.
I'm being honest, at that point, I'm like, well, if I'm being honest, I was kind of testing the waters a little bit to see how you would react. That may have been wrong of me, but it's part of my vetting process,
Right. And all I was going to say was I'm willing to take that backlash to get the real answer.
Yeah.
I've had too many people not be straightforward with me. So I feel like, saying to them, if you were to sleep with somebody, blah, blah, yeah, and getting an honest answer is a good thing. Again, nobody has come back at me and said, okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing and I will. And, it's never been that. It's always been at that point
Right.
that they didn't want to, but, are they just wanting the intimacy? So they'll say anything and they're onto you. They're like, oh yeah, you don't want me to be dating other women. Yeah, give me that crap. I don't know.
All
But
right,
it
so
doesn't
let's talk about chemistry a little bit, because you and I obviously very quickly had chemistry. By the end of our first date, it was pretty much sealed. We knew that there was chemistry between us. But is that common? Is chemistry normally immediate like we had, or is it something that builds over time?
I think there's definitely there's probably more people who would say, that are in relationships, that would say it builds over time. I think that's more common.
I think there's some evidence of that from our previous comment sections on this show.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't kiss on the first date. I wouldn't have sex on the first date. What if you're not? I've seen comments such as, what if you're not attracted to them?
And we've talked about that. I always tell people, if you're not attracted to somebody, give it, as long as everything else was good, but that was just where it was slacking, give it another go. You do become more attracted to somebody as you get to know them, if you have that connection. It's just a thing. I mean, there are people who will say, when I first saw him or her, I thought they were pretty unattractive, but I kept talking to them because this interested me about them. And then by the time they fall in love with them, and it usually sneaks up on them, 20 years later, they're like, she, he, whatever, the most beautiful person I've ever been with.
Hi,
And
Relief D. Hello, Relief D. I'm not
really
sure what you mean. Pretty IMM. Do you know what that means, Christine?
No, pretty eyes. I don't know.
She does have pretty eyes, doesn't she?
I don't know. But hello, you've been here before. What is your name? Because I don't think we've ever asked your name, or if you're a male or female, but not that matters. But yeah, I do think that if you have something that you enjoy about a person, I don't think you should just count them out. I think you should give it another shot. it's definitely worth it.
Okay, then I guess I would just wonder how long you should wait or how long you should give it the old college try before you decide, okay, maybe there's just no chemistry here.
Well, I think that if you're willing to give a few dates and you stay open-minded about it, that's enough, you know. Hi, Donna. I think that you don't need to do more than a few dates. If you're not feeling some kind of excitement to see them again, thinking about them when you're not with them by the third or fourth date, yeah, you know, you may as well call it. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think you should put more time than that into it, especially if you're 50 or over. I really don't think you should.
And I do want to talk about the 50 or over thing a little bit, even though we kind of covered some of that last week. Because you mentioned it earlier, we are kind of different, but I think part of that is the fact that we're over 50. And I think that you and I progress quicker because we know what we want out of life, because we've lived a certain amount of life.
Right.
And so we may be progressing, and I think there may have even been some hesitancy from certain family members of yours with how quickly you were progressing, because they're younger and they don't understand, you know, when you get to a certain age and you know what you want, you don't waste time, you know, figuring XYZ out because you already know a lot of what you want.
And I will just say those same family members now are probably very grateful that I
progressed as quickly as they did. Yeah.
Yes. I bet you. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that's about half of what made us work. And then I think the other half is love at first sight, you know, when you know, you know what I mean?
And that does happen. Sometimes you just, especially, I think it happens more often when you're older. I hesitate because honestly, that's probably not true. You probably talk to more older people that say, you know, that are so jaded by love at this point that that's probably not true. I guess what I'm saying is I think if people were of our age were open to it, it would happen more often because they know what they want. And I think that they would recognize it when it showed up. I think
that's why you're warning, and you even gave me a warning when you found out I was kind of settling for this FWB person. You know, it's like, do not settle. If you know what you want, go for it. Don't settle. Yeah. You know, don't just kind of drift, you know, just to get by, you know, go along to get along.
So my previous co-host had a real issue with my priorities list. And I bring it up only because that's kind of what that had to do with when I said don't settle. I worked on this. I worked on me for over a year. I dated very little. And in that year, I spent a lot of time looking at who I am because I did have a relationship after my divorce. And as it turned out, it took me almost 2 years of dating this guy, breaking up so many times and realizing I was with the same kind of person that I said I wouldn't date anymore. And it flabbergasted me. I couldn't believe it. And so I looked at myself and I said, why? Why are you still attracting and accepting going towards men like that? So I spent a year and I told myself I was going to figure it out. And I did. And one of the reasons that I was able to figure it out was because I made a list of what I wanted in a relationship. You know, what does a fairy tale relationship look like to me? And I figured out what my top 3 priorities in a relationship are. And these are my non-negotiables. He hated my non-negotiables. He did not believe in them. And that was okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that was a bad thing. Having a co-host who is opposites, that's good. You get to see both sides. But he never did. Never did he ever understand that a priority list, a non-negotiables was a good thing. And it's funny because A lot of the audience that agreed with him changed their mind after I explained what I meant. My non-negotiables, I have a list of, let's say, 5 things or 10 things. There's only 3 that are non-negotiables. The rest I can play with, depending on how.
Such as if your prospective person has a kid.
Exactly. Having a child was not one of my non-negotiables, although we have.
But it was on the compatibility list, and it was something that you had to weigh versus, the other stuff that did check the boxes. So
that's right. And I got an email from a follower, and not just an email, a comment on a podcast, and he actively talked to me on that podcast, challenging me, and that's okay. I don't mean this isn't bad. Challenged me as to why I would bend my rules. And I had to explain, and I have to explain, I only have 3 non-negotiables. And my non-negotiables in order, and what I have learned over time is their orders can switch. They are interchangeable between them all. One affects the other. So it doesn't really matter what order they're in. Is sexual compatibility, emotional maturity and compatibility, and communication style. Communication. Those 3 things I can't negotiate on. I cannot have a relationship that I'm going to be happy with. Therefore, he's not going to be happy unless we meet those things. And in Mike, if he had sat down and made himself a list, I'm pretty certain those would be his top 3 as well.
Absolutely would have been my top 3 as well.
Right.
And again, in order of importance, that can change from time to time, but the top 3 never go anywhere. They're always there. So,
but the rest are just nuanced based on the person. And I think that these 2 people who just never got it, I think that's the reason they didn't agree. And I'm not saying people have to agree with me, but I really think that if they had understood, they would get it, it was funny because with my co-host, I learned him very well, and I told him, and I did it on camera. I'm like, you do have non-negotiables. He's like, no, I don't. Everything is negotiable. I'm like, no, you do. I said, would you be happy if your person, the person you thought was yours, would not engage in texting you the way you like to be texted in a relationship? He's like, no. I'm like, there you go.
That's a non-negotiable.
That is a non-negotiable. You would not be happy in the long run. And he was currently in a relationship, not in a relationship. He was trying to start one with somebody. And that was one of the issues. And I'm like, you're not happy. You're not happy. Those are the things I'm talking about. Look at what in your life is so important. It makes you unhappy. And say,
but I think that it takes some soul searching sometimes to realize whether something is actually a non-negotiable, or if you could budge on that, or if you would be settling because it really is a non-negotiable.
Agree. And that's why I told Mike, don't settle. Because one of his top non-negotiables would be, if he had those, would be sexual compatibility. And he had not been with anybody in a long time. And he found somebody that was willing to, do that whenever they wanted to. And he wasn't sure he wanted to lose that possibility, regardless of whether he wanted to be with her or not. He was wondering if the friends with benefit thing, if he didn't want to lose that. He didn't want to lose that possibility in case.
Even though one of my non-negotiables was communication, and this person just absolutely could not communicate
because this wasn't about
platitudes.
Because this wasn't about a relationship. It was about sex. It was about the fact
that was the FWB thing, or really more NSA as far as I was concerned. But that was the non-committed relationship I was in.
Yeah, whatever it was, he didn't want to let go of it, and that's because she was meeting one of the things
right
that makes him happy in a relationship. And he was, I hate to say this because, it's what we talked about, but he was hedging his bets until he wasn't. He stopped
immediately.
Yeah. But he was hedging his bets before I called him out.
Well, and that's why I said earlier, is friends with benefits just a placeholder for something else? And I believe that 9 times out of 10, it probably absolutely is.
And he had to take a risk. The risk was letting go of the friends with benefits, the guaranteed booty call.
For lack of a better term, yeah, okay.
Yeah. to see if a relationship with me would work. And
here we are 4.5 months later, ta-da, doing a show together.
But that's the risk, and that's another thing that I always say, their life. No different, it's even more so. It's a risk. You're letting someone into your heart,
But nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'll always say that. So
that is true. So okay, guys, we hit on a lot of things tonight. We did not just stay to sex and dating. This is what I want to say about tonight's episode. I think it's really good because I think it's a nice little sampling of the things that we talk about all the time on this podcast. So. And
thank you, all 6 of you at one point, for tuning in during the live show, especially you, Donna. Donna, thank you for having the cojones to comment. It's so appreciated.
Thank you, Donna.
If you're shy, send us an email at
realtalkwithchristine@gmail.com
or shitlesspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish there was a way for us to see who those people are, but there's not. So if you guys want us to know that you're here, you do have to say hello and tell us who you are, because we have no way of looking into the chat room other than if you say something.
But either way, you are absolutely appreciated. So have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m.
with more of the Unfiltered Talk.